Okay, hello everybody. Once again, we are here with another lecture in this particular series, right? Now, as you all know that we have started a series for in the name of probables, basically for means 2025, and specifically we have been discussing about the important topics or the important issues which may be important for the means 2025. So I welcome you all to JS Core. And the way we have we already had one lecture, and in that particular lecture we had been discussing about basically modern India, right? That what might be the probable areas in modern India. So हमने वहाँ पे देखा, though one thing I must say you that whenever it comes to anticipating questions or guessing questions, or let's say even themes specifically in the history portion, that is very tough. And frankly speaking, when it comes to art and culture segment, it is more tough because there is no dearth of topics. And in fact, frankly speaking, if you see the nature of questions that have come in previous years, I don't think there is a pattern which is being followed. You can't say, okay, this year they have been asking a question on this part, so next year they'll be asking a question on that part. Like there is no such kind of such kind of frequency or such kind of series or else we can say pattern can be seen here. So थोड़ी मशक्कत होती है specifically art and culture segment में. Modern India में फिर भी शायद it is quite possible because there are limited themes on what we can expect questions. So there is it is quite easy for us to figure out, not easy I'll say, but then of course we can guess certain questions. But then art and culture, first of all, there is no limited topic. Okay, these are the 20 or let's say 30 or let's say even 50 topics from where the questions are going to come. In fact, if you'll see the syllabus and if you'll try to find out a sort of correlations between the syllabus and the question, unfortunately that also cannot be noticed or that cannot be visualized by us, because in the syllabus they have simply given that the salient aspects of the various art forms such as architecture, language and literature and others. So basically this is the thing what they have given in the syllabus. But then when it comes to the question, really it becomes tough to say that they have been they are quite stick with the syllabus while asking their questions. As far as pre is concerned, so they have given the history of India. So in history of India, they can ask the question from ancient, they can ask the question from medieval, they can even ask the question from the modern also or some other aspects of modern, which are not precisely falling in the category of the modern. But ये pattern हम यहाँ पे apply नहीं कर सकते हैं क्योंकि यहाँ पे इन लोगों ने ऐसा कुछ लिख के नहीं दिया है कि हम इस एरिया से स्टिक रहेंगे. यहाँ पे history of India भी नहीं है. That's the reason because of what we cannot anticipate the questions from ancient and medieval. But frankly speaking, when you see the questions in art and culture segment, they have been asking the questions from ancient India, they have been asking the questions from medieval India, and the reason is very simple because culture is a very extensive term, right? It cannot be confined within a boundary. Okay, this is what should be called in this is what should be kept in the category of culture, and this could not be kept in the category of culture. In the name of culture, they have started asking the questions on multiple dimensions, on the several dimensions. That's the reason because of what it is bit tricky. So if you really want to anticipate the questions from this in this part, so for that it would be really helpful if we see that what sort of questions they have asked previously, right? So एक बार उसको देखने के बाद थोड़ा बहुत हमें पता चलेगा कि किस तरीके के questions ये लोग इन लोगों ने पहले पूछा है. So I think that would get us certain insight or some insight. So here I have collected the questions of last 10-12 years. And let us see that what are the themes that they have highlighted. Fine. So if we'll see the questions of 2024, again, I had been telling you that they are not following any pattern. And I think it's quite simply visible here. In 2024, one question they have asked from the society and economy, the transition in the from the Rig Vedic to the later Vedic period. This is what they have asked. And this question is precisely based on the history rather than art and culture, right? Because मैंने कहा कि art and culture के अंदर usually हम समझते हैं कि आप language and literature हो सकता है, architecture हो सकता है, right? Iconography हो सकता है. So these are the topics which may be which may fall in this category. But then this is precisely a question which had been picked up from history, ancient Indian history. Because as far as this transition is concerned, this transition we cover precisely in history, not in art and culture. But then that has been asked. The next two questions are more like interesting, because at one hand they have asked the questions like regarding the contribution of the Pallavas. On the next question they have asked the question on the contribution of the Cholas. Undoubtedly they are related to art and art and architecture. Here also it is art and architecture, but then two questions are coming from South India. Normally क्या होता है कि अगर मुझे मौका मिला कि मैं पेपर बना रहा हूँ, इस केस में मैं कोशिश करूंगा कि if I have been asking one question from South India, first of all, I won't prefer to ask the similar kind of questions, a similar kind of question. And even if I have been asking, I'll try to make a balance and I'll try to pick up one, let's say, dynasty from North India. This is a sort of logical thing. But they have asked two questions from South India, very similar in nature, Pallavas and Cholas. And in fact, Cholas are following the Pallavas. And in fact, a continuity can be noticed. मतलब जो Dravidian art forms है, जो Pallavas ने develop किए, और किस तरीके से हम देखते हैं कि उसके अंदर एक continuity है, और वो कंटिन्यूटी चोलास में जाके दिखती है, या फिर जिस तरीके से हम कहते हैं कि किस जो है चोलास ने द्रविडियन आर्ट फॉर्म जो पल्लवास के अंदर इवॉल्व हो रही है, वो आर्ट फॉर्म कैसे चोलास के पीरियड में जाके अपने एपेक्स पे पहुंचती है या अपने चरम पे पहुंचती है. सो दिस इज ए सॉर्ट ऑफ कंटिन्यूटी. आई थिंक it seems that probably somebody from South India must have come to make the paper. उन्होंने क्या होगा, दोनों एक क्वेश्चन उठा के पूछ दिया होगा. इसकी पॉसिबिलिटी है, मतलब I'm just guessing कि this is the only thing, right? So you can see that there is no such pattern what you can follow. Next 2023, again the nature of question is to be very different. They have asked precisely a question from the from the ancient India, and it is from one of the chapters which are there in ancient India, ancient Indian NCERT, and that is the geographical factors towards the development of ancient India. Now, how come the geographical factors had been playing an important role for developing the things or developing the society in the ancient times? The next question is more from society. Let's leave it. And then major technological changes introduced during the Sultanate period. Now, again, very different in nature. So, you can see this question. 2022, they have asked again the medieval Indian temple sculptures, right? A very unique sort of question they have asked, from this part. And in fact, the social life, it's the way it represents the social life of that period. Then it is about the Gupta period and the Chola period. So 2024 also they had been asking one question on the Cholas, right? 2022 they had asked one question from the Cholas. 2022 Bhakti literature, right? And the rise of growth and socio-religious reform movements, specific that is from modern India, so we can avoid it, right? 2020, if we'll see, then the questions were on what topics, such as rock cut architecture and rock cut architecture and its contribution. Then the Palas and their contribution for the development of Buddhism, right? Then Indian philosophy and tradition played a significant role in conceiving and shaping the monuments and their and their arts in India. The Persian literary sources of medieval India, again a very unique question, I must say it. 2018, it is again a very journalistic kind of question, that how the Indian art and heritage must be preserved. Then there was a question on Bhakti movement, right? So again a sort of continuity you'll find from here to here. Bhakti movement यहाँ पे पूछा है, यहाँ पे Indian philosophical traditions पूछे, तो Bhakti movement of philosophical tradition आप इसको एक continuity में रख सकते हैं, ठीक है? And then that is about the travelers, very unique sort of questions that you see in 2018. So if you'll see the nature of questions, in that case I must say that they are not following any significant pattern as such in this part. Rather I can say that they have been asking the questions in a very random way. तो जब कोई random way में जब चीजें पूछते हैं, ठीक है, तो फिर हमारे लिए थोड़ा मुश्किल होता है, it becomes slightly tough for us to go for any guesses specifically in the art and culture segment. Still, seeing the pattern, at least we can think of that what sort of topics must be emphasized, or they must be they must be given more weightage, that we can discuss. And this is what we'll just try to have, or we'll try to discuss in this particular part, right? So frankly speaking, if we'll see, right, if we'll see the questions, right, or let's say the importance of the topics, so I'm just listing that what are the topics which are important. Matlab, if you'll see the previous pattern, from where you have you find the maximum probability of the question. So frankly speaking, there's one area what I find very important is one area what I find very important is the architecture. आर्किटेक्चर। ये एक एरिया है जो बहुत फ्रिक्वेंटली लोगों ने पूछा है, जहां से मतलब directly or indirectly the questions are linked to this. Okay, then second topic I'll say literature. This had also appeared very frequently, and that's how we can keep it in the category of very questions which have been asked very frequently. Then it comes to the philosophy, right? Again, it is a larger term, right? And I'll have a discussion over it, right? So philosophy, that includes the ancient philosophy, medieval philosophy, and even early medieval and medieval philosophy, all parts are can be included here. And in fact, you can include another topic, or we can keep it separately, that is the Bhakti and Sufi movement, right? Bhakti and Sufi, more precisely speaking the Bhakti movement, ठीक है? क्यों है भक्ति मूवमेंट ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट, हम उस पर नहीं जाते हैं, पर हम कह सकते हैं कि भक्ति मूवमेंट जो है कहीं ना कहीं ज्यादा है। तो अगर आप देखेंगे कि व्हाट आर द एरियाज व्हिच हैव बीन गिवन मैक्सिमम वेटेज व्हाइल आस्किंग द while asking the questions, frankly speaking, these are the areas which have been given the maximum weightage while asking the questions. So that's the reason, because of what, you should prepare it in that particular perspective. Fine. So on the basis of these areas, if we'll go for certain probable areas, in that case I can say what are the new things that could be noticed. So frankly speaking, the interconnection between the society and the art, that is one very important dimension, that is a very important area on what they have been focusing a lot, right? मतलब किस तरीके से various things of society reflecting art forms, the various dynasties impacting the art forms, and vice versa also, right? So this is the relationship specifically between the society and the art forms that has come. Normally if you'll see the history questions coming in मेंस एग्जामिनेशन, फ्रैंकली स्पीकिंग, जहां पे कुछ क्वेश्चंस ऐसे आ रहे हैं जहां पे आपको ये समझ में नहीं आता कि ये क्वेश्चन प्रिसाइजली सोसाइटी के ऊपर बेस्ड है या फिर हिस्ट्री के ऊपर या आर्ट एंड कल्चर के ऊपर बेस्ड है। तो कुछ क्वेश्चंस में वो जो इंटरलिंकेजेस है वो बहुत क्लियरली विजिबल है। तो कई कुछ सारे क्वेश्चंस ऐसे होते हैं जहां पे यू कैन नॉट कीप इट इन ए प्रिसाइज कैटेगरी कि नहीं ये तो सोसाइटी का क्वेश्चन है और ये जो है हिस्ट्री का क्वेश्चन है, आप ऐसे नहीं कर सकते हैं। जैसे ऋग्वैदिक सोसाइटी उन लोगों ने पूछा, सो व्हाइल अंडरस्टैंडिंग द सोसाइटी we should see. So that is one area what I have understood, and as far as the highlighted or the important areas are concerned, I have already discussed. On the basis of that, what are the topics that you should focus upon, right? So let's see. So one area that you can find, one more very important thing. So if we'll see the nature of questions, in that case you can find that the transition in the nature of questions is clearly visible. Now earlier the art forms used to be the center of the question, and from there they have shifted to the history question. Just now I had been showing you certain questions, I showed you a couple of questions from the past few years, and on the basis of that you can clearly anticipate, or you can clearly guess that as far as these questions are concerned, they're having a shift. वो art and culture के नाम पे they're not asking temple architecture, sculpture art, right? And then language and literature, let's say even some other art forms which are there, music, dance and all these kind of things. Music, dance ऐसे भी नहीं पूछते हैं, वो कभी नहीं पूछा उन लोगों ने। लेकिन अगर हम historical art forms भी लें तो 4-5 ऐसे art forms हैं जो सबसे ज्यादा important है। देख तो उनके question सारा art and culture के ऊपर based होने की बजाय, मतलब precisely art and culture के ऊपर based होने की बजाय धीरे धीरे एक shift है जहां पे they have started picking the dimensions of history itself, right? और वहां से उठा के उन लोगों ने questions पूछना शुरू किया है। That's the reason, because of what I must say कि there is a transition, and that's why you should be ready. I'm not asking you to read ancient and medieval extensively, because वहां पे भी एक correlation, as I told you, that a correlation between society and society and basically culture is very much visible. तो हमें दोनों को थोड़ा merge करके हमें देखना चाहिए. That would be the good way. And apart from that, if there are certain things which are in limelight in the recent times, so we can get certain insight from there. So by merging these two ideas, I have just I'll discuss about couple of topics which may be important for us. Fine. One topic I find very important in the recent time is the dynasty based questions, right? आपने अभी मैंने देखा कि if we'll see the previous year questions, in that case I'll find they have asked the Cholas, Pallavas, Guptas, Palas, right? तो बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस जो है डायनेस्टी बेस्ड उन लोगों ने पूछे हैं, ठीक है। सो अगर डायनेस्टी बेस्ड क्वेश्चंस पे हम देखें तो ठीक है, हमारे लिए जो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है, द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक फॉर अस इज अनडाउटेडली द गुप्ता पीरियड, राइट? Guptas I find the most important. Why Guptas? Because it is considered as the golden period, right? It is considered as the golden period. And nowadays it is considered as a golden period with respect to basically the development of art and culture. Earlier it was considered as the golden period with respect to basically like economy or economic development. Frankly speaking, now I find और द हिस्टोरियंस फाइन नॉट मी कि ये क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है, क्योंकि आर्ट एंड कल्चर फॉर्म्स का बहुत डेवलपमेंट है यहाँ पे, राइट. सो अच्छा, अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट द गुप्ता पीरियड इज ऑल्सो नॉन for numbers of societal changes, right? Numbers of societal changes. The way you find that caste is coming or jati is coming as one of the most important identity of the society, or one of the most important identity which becomes even important in the varna. So you can talk about the consolidation of caste, the division of society, right? Then the way like status of women had been going through certain changes. So what I'm simply trying to tell you that Indian society is very much being defined in this period, and that is the reason because of one and another term had been used for it, that is called as the classical age. And why classical age? Because if you really need to see that what is the ideal Indian society, probably like in a Gupta period has been conveyed. Now it depends कि आप किस section से आते हैं, आप माने या ना माने, that's a different thing. But जब ideal Indian society की बात आती है, तो it is believed that Gupta period was that ideal period. So what I'm trying to tell you, that's simply trying to tell you that as there are so many developments in the field of art and culture, there are so many societal changes, and it becomes the sort of parameter for Indian society or the role model for Indian society. It means कि it is very important. Earlier also they have asked question, but ठीक है, उन लोगों ने अगर पहले पूछा है कि how come Guptas contributed for the development of art and culture, so that is okay, like but then here possibilities are there more, and in fact more like dimensions can be asked from here, such as like this period is even known for like great amount of development in science and technology, right? And I believe that like science and technology is gradually becoming an important topic. और जिस तरीके से इस बार की NCERT में इन लोगों ने कुछ चेंजेस किए हैं, और साइंस की सिर्फ हिस्ट्री की किताब को लेके कंट्रोवर्सी नहीं है, साइंस की किताब को लेके भी काफी कंट्रोवर्सी है, बिकॉज इसमें बहुत सारे ऐसे एग्जाम्पल्स इन लोगों ने कोट किए हैं या रेफरेंसेस कोट किए हैं, जहां पे उन्होंने कहा है कि मॉडर्न साइंसेस के रेप्लिकास या फिर उसके जो है अर्ली डेवलपमेंट आपको एंशिएंट इंडिया में दिखाई देते हैं, जैसे लाइक दे हैव बीन कोटिंग कनार, दे हैव बीन टॉकिंग अबाउट द प्लास्टिक सर्जरी एंड सो मेनी थिंग. मतलब of course the academicians like are willing to prove one thing कि ठीक है भाई, हम जो development है science and technology में वो बहुत पहले भी था. So that is the reason because of what I believe that this is also one part which is very important, right? So हम ये कह सकते हैं कि गुप्ता पीरियड अनडाउटेडली हमारे लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, तो ये हमें बिल्कुल ध्यान में रखना चाहिए कि यहाँ से एक क्वेश्चन हम एंटिसिपेट कर सकते हैं, राइट? बट अपार्ट फ्रॉम द गुप्तास, व्हाट आर द डायनेस्टीज लाइक दैट मे बी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर अस. सो अगर हम थ्रू आउट द हिस्ट्री देखें, मतलब फ्रॉम एंशिएंट टू लेट्स से मिडिवल पीरियड, इन दैट केस देयर आर कपल ऑफ डायनेस्टीज, ज्यादातर करके एंशिएंट पीरियड में वो इंपॉर्टेंट है. तो अगर हम कहें तो लाइक अगर हम बात करें तो हम इसमें इस पर्सपेक्टिव में हम मौर्यंस को भी रख सकते हैं, बिकॉज मौर्यंस हैड आल्सो contributed, though I must say कि their contribution is slightly less, इतने important नहीं है जितना कि इनका है. उससे ज्यादा contribution हमें अगर दिखाई देता है तो वो हमें कुसानास के अंदर दिखाई देता है. Whereas Kusanas were somehow patronizing multiple forms of arts, and that is how Kusana period is more important like with respect to the development of art and culture in India. So frankly speaking, apart from the Guptas, I'll suggest you that थोड़ा बहुत आप Kusanas देख के रखें. अब hardly matters that question is being asked directly related to Kusanas or indirectly, because when it comes to let's say Gandhara art, और या फिर हम बात करते हैं मथुरा आर्ट, या फिर गंधारा है, मथुरा है, या फिर यहाँ पे आप सातवानस को भी रख सकते हैं, बिकॉज सातवानस हैव आल्सो इमेंसली कंट्रीब्यूटेड. थोड़ा ये पुराने ज्यादा हैं तो नहीं इनके बारे में सवाल आता है, बट ठीक है, कुसाना और सातवानस का कंट्रीब्यूशन आप थोड़ा देख के रख सकते हैं. दैट वुड हेल्प यू इन दिस मेंस एग्जामिनेशन. सो अपार्ट फ्रॉम गुप्ता व्हिच आई एम गिविंग द मैक्सिमम वेटेज, लाइक यू कैन सी और चेक आउट द कुसानास एंड सातवानस. After that, it comes to the early medieval period, because early medieval period is somehow more important with respect to the development of art and culture. And here, like the Cholas and Pallavas had the maximum contribution. But apart from the Cholas and Pallavas, right? Apart from the Cholas and Pallavas, there may be other like kingdoms important for you, such as Hoysalas की भी contribution है, तो they are coming slightly late. Chalukyas का भी contribution है, but नॉर्मली उनके बारे में नहीं पूछा जाता है, बट चालुक्यास में भी हो सकते हैं कि चालुक्यास पूछे. पर ठीक है, मैं अगर कहूंगा कि आप छोड़ना चाहते हैं तो बिल्कुल छोड़ सकते हैं, बट ठीक है, ये जो डायनेस्टीज है, ये डायनेस्टीज आपको बिल्कुल देख के रखना चाहिए, क्योंकि यहाँ से अनडाउटेडली पॉसिबिलिटीज हैं क्वेश्चन आने की, एंड गुप्ता इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट वन, राइट? ओके फाइन. So dynasty based questions like in one area. Undoubtedly, you don't see the dynastic history. You simply see that these periods are known for the areas or for the changes in which areas, or if there are certain important contributions, तो कौन-कौन से areas है, कौन-कौन से periods है जहाँ पे आप उसको जो है कौन-कौन से areas है जहाँ पे उनका maximum impacts देखते हैं, right? Okay, fine. Moving to the next topic is IVC. IVC has been in limelight for last few years, and I won't won't say कि it is there in last 1 or 2 years. Frankly speaking, in last 1 or 2 decades, specifically in 1 decade, there are very important changes with respect to IVC. In 2019, 2020, 2021 also, several articles got published, right? To what extent they are worthy, to what extent they are reliable, that is a different matter of different matter of debate. I'm not getting into that, right? What I'm trying to simply tell you that due to multiple reasons, there are several aspects of IVC which have come into limelight, and that's why you should prepare those areas. Last year only, there was one software engineer called as Yagnadevam. He claimed of deciphering the script of IVC, and in fact his conclusions were really very surprising, as he writes in his article, which is in roughly around 100 pages, वो simply लिखते हैं कि जो वैदिक verses हैं या hymns हैं, they are there on the Harappan seals and they have been written in a code language. उन्होंने AI का इस्तेमाल किया, बहुत सारे उन्होंने जो है examples dump किए और examples dump करके उन्होंने figure out करने की कोशिश की. अभी ये हो सकता है कि historical study नहीं, right? It is, of course, it is not a historical study. But if something very interesting is happening in that case, I must say that you should prepare this part. So IVC in general is important. IVC in general is important. ऐसे भी important रहता है IVC, पर इसके अलावा जिस तरीके से राखी गढ़ी में काफी recent excavation हुए हैं, right? राखी गढ़ी बहुत सारे रीसेंट एक्सकेवेशंस हैं और राखी गढ़ी के जो रीसेंट एक्सकेवेशंस हैं वो लिटरली बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, बिकॉज दे हैव बीन कमिंग अप विद सम सच सॉलिड एविडेंसेस which are having the potential to change many early perceptions, right? So अगर इतना importance है इसका, तो इसका मतलब they are not going to ask simply that what are the discoveries in Rakhi Gadi, how it is changing our previous notions or the previous concepts, but it makes this particular topic very important. So there are many reasons because of what I find IVC very important. अब IBC में एक तो मैंने कहा कि when it comes to the script of IBC, maybe a question can be asked. ठीक है, it is quite possible. Very limited amount of historical information is there, right? But then whatsoever information is there, you prepare this part. क्योंकि अगर आप वो part prepare करके रखते हैं, तो अगर precisely एक question आता है script के ऊपर, so you write about that, and in fact you go for a comparison with the other sources or the other, let's say other scripts are there in India, and if there is any linkages between the two, तो उस perspective में हम इसको बात कर सकते हैं. But IVC के दूसरे areas भी या दूसरे domains भी उतने ही important है, और मैं ये नहीं कहूँगा कि बहुत unknown है. आप सबने IVC पढ़ी है, you all have gone through IVC, and you know that there are multiple domains. They can ask a question on the urbanization. Long back, they have picked up urbanization as one area. ये भी यूपीएससी का पैटर्न है कि कोई एरिया अगर चुन लेते हैं उसमें से, तो फिर लगातार 2-3 साल तक क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं वो. तो मुझे लगता है आईवीसी के बहुत सारे डोमेन्स हैं. अर्बनाइजेशन के ऊपर पूछ सकते हैं वो, या टाउन प्लानिंग के ऊपर पूछ सकते हैं, या फिर वो हरप्पन पॉलिटी या फिर सोसाइटी के बारे में पूछ सकते हैं. स्पेसिफिकली आई विल से दैट अमंग द डोमेन्स सोसाइटी इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, राइट? देन आई मस्ट से religion is very important, and in fact when you study the religion you always see it in a continuity, that how Harappan religion is sometimes there is a very important scholar called as Dilip Chakravarti, like he writes ki वो कंटिन्यूटी है, ठीक है, कि हरप्पन पीरियड से लेकर जो है आप अगले पीरियड तक, मतलब वैदिक पीरियड में या उसके बाद भी जो है कंटिन्यूटी दिखाई देती है. तो उस कंटिन्यूटी के पर्सपेक्टिव में आप इसको पढ़ें. सो यस, द सेकंड सजेशन ऑफ माइन विल बी दैट हरप्पन सिविलाइजेशन इज वन इंपॉर्टेंट एरिया एंड यू शुड कवर इट, एंड इनफैक्ट गो फॉर कवरिंग द मोस्ट पॉसिबल डायमेंशंस, एंड कपल ऑफ देम आई हैव सजेस्टेड हियर कि दिस माइट बी पॉसिबल फॉर यू, राइट, और पॉसिबल इन दिस एग्जामिनेशन. ओके, फाइन. Let's move to the next area. It comes to Buddhism and Janism. Now, if you'll see the Buddhism and Jainism, they are always important, right? So अगर आप प्री के क्वेश्चंस देखें तो प्री में आप देखेंगे कि लाइक ना, अगर आप प्री देखेंगे तो प्री में आपको बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस आपको दिखाई देंगे कि इनफैक्ट मैं कहूंगा कि हर साल प्री में ये लोग क्वेश्चंस पूछ रहे हैं, ठीक है. एवरी ईयर दे हैड बीन आस्किंग क्वेश्चंस इन द प्री एग्जामिनेशन. दिस ईयर सिंस देयर वाज नो क्वेश्चन इन द प्री एग्जामिनेशन, सो इट इज क्वाइट पॉसिबल. Just a second, I'm so sorry. Okay, fine. So as far as this Buddhism and Jainism is concerned, so I was just discussing one thing. I was saying one thing, and what is it? It has been asked very frequently in the pre-examination, but when it comes to the mains, it has appeared like in a very less. Since this year there was no question in the pre-examination, so it is quite possible that like they have been going for they are asking one question from the Buddhism and Jainism. Now, if you have been preparing Buddhism and Jainism, what dimensions may be important? Look, there are certain areas which are very simple, such as if it comes to Buddhism and Jainism. So, the reasons for the evolution or the birth of Buddhism and Jainism, ठीक है, एक ये हो सकता है. Apart from that, specifically, the area what I find most important is their connection with the society, right? How come Buddhism and Jainism were well connected to the society of that period? Now, it may be studied in multiple ways. What impacts were there of Buddhism and Jainism on society? Vice versa, how the society of that particular period had been shaping the development of Buddhism and Jainism. So, ये कई aspects में पूछ सकते हैं, but जो आपके लिए important है, वो ये वाला topic है. Then, like their expansion, the expansion of Buddhism and Jainism, and then we can simply talk about the decline. When I'm saying expansion, so it may be with respect to the emergence of various sects, it may be territorial or the regional expansion of the Buddhism and Jainism. So these are couple of areas that you should keep in mind. So अगर Buddhism and Jainism है, ये ज़्यादा important है, and in fact one comparative study between Buddhism and Jainism may be also important. There's a very popular topic that how come Jainism was not so popular in the initial stage the way Buddhism was. But later on, Jainism survived in this country, but Buddhism could not. So, this may be also one dimension to study. So that's how I can say that Buddhism and Jainism is like, they are also, they are also very important for this means, right? Okay, this is another very important area, Indian philosophies, right? Now, when it comes to the Indian philosophy, it must be studied again in like, in a longer period. So if it comes to the Indian philosophy, so undoubtedly there is one philosophy that you find in the Upanishads. That is called as the Vedantic philosophy, right? Vedantic philosophy. Then you find the development of this in form of Buddhism and Jainism, right? Buddhism and Jainism. They're not going to ask the core philosophy of them, right? But then as I told you in Buddhism and Jainism, how come they are related to society? और किस तरीके के connections है society और इसके बीच में वो पूछ सकते हैं. Then it comes to like Sardarsana. Sardarsana. Again, I don't find it very important कि ये सीधा पूछेंगे. मुझे इससे भी expectation नहीं, मुझे इससे भी expectation नहीं, right? But then further, specifically in the early medieval period, you find the development of bhakti, and with respect to the bhakti, the philosophy which is coming into existence, right? There are multiple philosophies. They are again falling in the category of the Vedantic philosophy, but they are important, specifically when it comes to Sankaracharya, and he comes up with the philosophy of non-dualism. Non-dualism, that is basically the Advaita philosophy, right? Then it comes to Ramanujacharya. He comes up with the Visishtadvaita, that is the unique non-dualism, and Madhavacharya. ये तीन एटलीस्ट फिलोसोफर्स हैं जो काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है. लास्ट ईयर उन्होंने यूपी ऑप्शनल में उन्होंने पूछा था द ट्रिम्बरेट philosophers. So basically these three are falling in this category, and earlier also in pre they have asked question on this, right? So that's why I believe that this is very important area, and in fact with respect to the consolidation of Hinduism, these three had majorly contributed. They are also important with respect to Bhakti movement, specifically when it comes to Ramanujacharya. He has immensely contributed for the development of Bhakti movement, and the way he connected the masses with the Hinduism. Probably it was not that much inclusive initially. That's how his contribution is also really great. So yes, if it comes to the philosophy, specifically in the early medieval, or let's say 9th to 12th century, now this is the part what I find very important, right? So ये मुझे सबसे important लगता है, और मुझे लगता है कि इसको आपको ढंग से prepare करके रखना चाहिए, ठीक है? That goes further to Bhakti movement, right? Frankly speaking, in medieval period, there were two movements which were very, very important. One is Bhakti, one is Sufi, right? And Bhakti and Sufi movements should not be seen merely as a religious philosophy, rather they should be seen as a social movement, right? Both Bhakti and Sufi movement, they should be seen as social movement. Social movement. That's the reason because of what you find the impact of this in society. You find the impact of this as, in culture. You find the impact of this in literature, even architecture also, right? And undoubtedly the way you find the heterogeneity coming in the religion, or the way multiple sects are emerging within Hinduism, that is also one contribution. So Bhakti movement के contributions Indian society को shape करने में बहुत ज़्यादा है, ठीक है? They had immense contribution, right? And in fact, their contributions were in a very diverse field, language and literature. They have immensely contributed in that. So that's how you can say that as far as the Bhakti movement is concerned, this is a very, very, very important topic. So this part also you should prepare well, right? So अगर हम पूरी तरीके से देखें तो मुझे लगता है कि Bhakti, ठीक है, in form of philosophies, and Bhakti in with respect to its contribution to the various areas of India or Indian history, Indian society, Indian culture, right? That is the part which is important. So Bhakti or Sufi movement ko, खासकर Bhakti movement को, because again I am saying that Sufi movement I am not expecting this year, but Bhakti movement मुझे important लगता है, right? Well, there is another area what I find important is the educational system of India. Now, when it comes to the educational system of India, so you can divide it into two categories, right? One category is the ancient and then medieval. One category may be Hindu, or let's say Brahminical, right? The contribution of Buddhism and Islam. So you can study in two different perspectives, right? एक आप ancient और medieval में किस तरीके के transitions हैं, what sort of pedagogy was there in the ancient times, what sort of gurukuls used to be there in the ancient time, what kind of curriculum were there, what were the important centers of education, right? So there are multiple aspects that should be covered here. Then it comes to medieval. Medieval is also very important, and in fact in medieval also you find certain specific developments in certain specific developments with respect to art and culture and the transition, because in Sultanate period the education was very different, but in Mughal period the education becomes very different. How come the ancient Indian traditional education was surviving in the medieval period, whether it was surviving or not? What contributions are there? Some regional kingdoms such as when it comes to Bahmani, they had immense contributions, specifically when it comes to Mahmud Gawa, उनके contributions बहुत ज़्यादा है. एक बार specific question पूछा है उसके ऊपर, optional में पूछा है, पर ठीक है ये ऐसे questions आ सकते हैं. तो ancient और medieval जो है वो मुझे लगता है कि काफी important है, right? तो उसमें आप जिस भी perspective से देखें, ठीक है, आप इधर से देखें या इधर से देखें, इन्होंने तक्षशिला और not तक्षशिला, या तक्षशिला and नालंदा के ऊपर वो एक बार क्वेश्चन पूछ चुके हैं. So education or educational institution, or even the growth and the development of education, I find it important, right? NEP 2020 has come, and in fact there are so many so much chaos, or so many debates are there regarding this, and that's how I find it may be important. It may be it may be asked to you, right? So that's how I can say the education system is one very important area that you should prepare. और यहाँ पे मैंने दोनों ही कहा, दोनों ही चीजें कही, ठीक है. इसमें आप करिकुलम पे फोकस करिए, ठीक है, करिकुलम पे फोकस करिए, और दूसरा आप इंस्टीट्यूशन पे फोकस करिए, ठीक है. एंड देन थर्ड you focus on the evolution, that how the growth was there, whether it was going in a positive direction or it was going in a negative direction. So both the things can be asked, like, or must be prepared. That's how you should see this particular part, right? Okay. So this topic also I find very important. Okay. After education system, the science and technology. Yes, that's also one area which is gradually becoming important. Again, when it comes to the development of science and technology, it must be seen in multiple periods. So when it comes to the development of it, you can see it in the ancient period, right? As one unit. Then we can see it in early medieval period. Then you can see it in Sultanate period, what they had asked already, they have asked this question, and you can talk about it in the Mughal period. तो आप इसको ऐसे period wise divide करके देख सकते हैं. That would be good for you, because if you divide it in the period wise, in that case, if they have been picking or they are picking questions from any specific period, then only then also will be able to answer. And in fact, you should also prepare it with respect to the transition. ठीक है? We can also prepare one part, the contribution of the outsiders, contribution of outsiders in the development of Indian science and technology. So undoubtedly, if you'll see the Indian history, frankly speaking, Indians had great achievement in science and technology, and whether it is fit as per the modern sciences or not, that may be a subject to debate, and I don't want to be part of that debate. ठीक है, but वो हमें नहीं जाना है, but है contribution है. There are several things which had already been discovered by them, and in fact, if we'll talk about these discoveries, so whether, as I told you, that whether it could be fit as per the modern sciences or not, but at least the people had been talking about these things, or they have studied those things. That was a great achievement. And frankly, one more thing I'll say, that over the period you'll find the decline in this scientific temperament of the Indians, and because of what, by the time you reach to the medieval, you find lesser scientific advancement or the developments. So you should see it in this way. अगर उन लोगों ने पिछली बार सल्तनत पूछा था, तो इसके पीछे जो है कुछ there was an intention because of what they asked this question. अब बस smartly उन लोगों ने पूछा, और ये भी पूछा था कि इसका सोसाइटी में impact क्या है. ठीक है. अच्छा, when you talk about the science and technology, there is one area, ठीक है, within it that should be prepared also. That is irrigation. Now, whereas devices were invented, and that's the reason because of what I can say that it is also falling as part of the art and science and technology. तो irrigation एक area है जिसपे आप थोड़ा ध्यान देंगे, science से link करके उसको वो पूछ सकते हैं. Fine. This is also one important area. What next? Language and literature. Fine. Now, language and literature is important again. Why? Because I told you that this is one of the area which had been asked so frequently by them. Again, when it comes to the language and literature, you can see it in as a historical development, as a historical development. So the way you find that initially it is Brahmi. There are lots of controversy regarding Sanskrit these days, whether it is an Indian language, it is a borrowed language, right? So there it is very controversial these days. So Sanskrit is there. Then it comes to the regional languages. Then it comes to the coming of Persian. Then it comes to Urdu. Then again the Khadi Boli, or let's say Hindi. So if you'll see the development, you can find, and in between you can keep the Tamilian or the Dravidian languages also. So when it comes to these gradual developments in language and literature, and roughly I have written that what are the developments that you find in this period, you should link it with the developments other developments happening in this period, right? So whenever you see this transition is coming, there were certain movements, there were certain incidents which had been majorly contributing here. तो कहीं ना कहीं से कुछ impacts आते हैं, कुछ influences होते हैं, जिसकी वजह से linguistic changes देखते हैं, और इन्हीं linguistic changes का एक बहुत बड़ा impact क्या है? That is the literature. So Indian literature becomes quite diverse because of what these linguistic changes come in. And whenever you cover this particular topic, you always go for some good amount of examples. Because without quoting the right examples or without mentioning the right examples, somehow you won't be able to write the answer properly in the GS part, right? तो अब अगर आप ब्राह्मी स्क्रिप्ट कर रहे हैं तो आप देख लीजिए कि कौन कौन से एग्जाम्पल्स हैं जो आप कोट कर सकते हैं, ठीक है? अगर आप संस्कृत कर रहे हैं स्पेसिफिकली व्हेन इट कम्स टू द गुप्ता पीरियड, सो एटलीस्ट लाइक नॉट ओनली कालिदास शुड बी मेंशन बट भास, शूद्रक, लाइक विशाखदत्त, कुछ और लोग भी मेंशन होने चाहिए। ऐसे ही जब आप अर्ली मेडिवल पीरियड में रीजनल लिटरेचर की बात कर रहे हैं तो आपके पास कुछ एग्जाम्पल्स होने चाहिए, लाइक लेट्स से इफ दे आर ओनली टेक 2 or 3, दैट इज ओके, but then it should be there, right? And this should be covered and so on. So that's how I can say कि like language and literature is a very important topic. So अगर आप इसको एक story की तरह लेके जाते हैं and then you connect it with some other developments of the society in that period, I guess like that sounds okay, fine. So yes, like if it comes to the important topics that I suggest you to prepare, these topics are there. Though I have generally gone for the themes, right? Themes as in जो मैंने आपको बताया कि मोटे मोटे themes हैं और within those themes you can find that multiple सब topics should be there, but ठीक है, मुझे लगता है कि अगर थोड़ा आप carefully इसको prepare करें तो like somehow you'll be able to cater your requirements in the examination and you can expect of getting better marks. Normally in paper 1 people are getting very lesser marks, ठीक है, except few. One of my students like she scored I guess 118 in paper 1. That was really surprising, and I think only one girl has like scored more than her. So 118 in paper 1 was really a sort of very interesting and very like progressive marks, are very of course it helped her to like get a very good rank. तो अगर आप थोड़ी मशक्कत करें, थोड़ा स्मार्टली प्रिपेयर करें, बिकॉज सी ऑल्सो डिड हार्ड वर्क इन पेपर 1 एंड सी वाज हैविंग हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल, सो अनडाउटेडली लाइक सी डिड बेटर. तो मुझे लगता है कि अगर इस इन एरियाज पे थोड़ा फोकस करें तो आप भी बेहतर कर सकते हैं, एंड इवन यू कैन क्रॉस 110 इन पेपर 1. सो वेदर पीपल आर स्टक इन 90, इफ यू आर क्रॉसिंग 110, दैट्स गोइंग टू बी अ ग्रेट अचीवमेंट, राइट? सो दैट्स ऑल फ्रॉम माय साइड. लाइक आई होप दैट आई डिड सम वैल्यू एडिशन in your understanding, and please follow like the suggestions and then go for revising these contents. Of course you can revise only, and if you can add few more, so you can do that, right? So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.